Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. After my last meal plan, I had a few requests to make a new meal plan with less prep involved. So this meal plan will be less than an hour of prep for the whole week, and all the meals come together in less than 30 minutes or less, and I spent less than $55. So let's head to the store and get shopping. Here is my list. Let's see what we can get for less than $60. So the first thing I want to get is some of this potato gnocchi for $1.99. Here we go. Next, I'm going to pick up 3 dozen eggs. They're $1.29 each today. Then I'll get half a gallon of whole milk for $2.02. I'm going to be using some of this milk for sauces. That's why I'm getting whole today instead of reduced fat. Next, I'll get 1 container of cottage cheese for $2.45. Next, I want to get about $6 in chicken. I think I'm going to go with chicken thighs this week. Actually, I'm seeing that the leg quarters are still a much better price of $1.19 a pound, and I think I can get a little bit more bang for my buck here, so that's what I'll do. I'm gonna get some of this beef chuck steak. It's $4.99 a pound. I'm gonna get about $8 worth, and I'm planning on making a lo mein this week, so that's why I'm picking this up. I normally get the rolls of sausage for $2.29, but they don't have it, so I'm gonna get this mild Italian sausage for $3.49 today. Next, we'll get 2 pounds of elbows for $1.99. I was planning on just getting the 2 bags for 29 cents each, but this is all they have today. And they're out of the 2-pound box of spaghetti, and that's normally $1.99. So I'm gonna go with this organic spaghetti today for $1.99. So it is twice the price, but I really have my mind set on something for dinner, so I'm gonna grab one of these. Next, I'll grab 1 pound of cheddar cheese for $3.79. Then I'll get tofu here for $1.59. And I've never cooked with this before, so this week should be interesting. Next, we'll get some cabbage for 49 cents a pound. And 3 cloves of garlic for, 3 bulbs of garlic for 79 cents. Then we'll get some bananas for 45 cents a pound. I need a lime for 15 cents, and then a couple of onions here for 68 cents a pound. Next, I'll get 1 package of green onions for 79 cents. Then a package of mushrooms for $2.27. Then I'll get 2 pounds of carrots for $1.49. Then I need 1 head of lettuce for $1.69. Next, I'll get 1 bag of spinach for $1.39. And the last thing on my list is ground turkey. I'm gonna get 2 pounds for $2.65 a pound. Here's everything that we're getting today. We've got the chicken on the bottom. Let's see what our total is. Here's everything, and we spent $54.97 today. This week is a little bit different. I am going to be using some seasonings, sauces, and a couple other pantry and refrigerated items. I have a list for you on the blog too, so if you're missing anything, definitely pick it up. But if you need to just add a couple things, maybe some oats and hoisin. The first thing that we're going to prep for the week are these chocolate banana protein muffins. They're super fast and really delicious, and they're great to freeze and reheat later. So first I'm going to take my bananas. They're not quite soft enough, so I'm just going to put them in the oven at 300 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes until they look like this, so they're nice and soft and easier to smash and bake with. Then I'm going to take my oats and blend them up. I'm going to need about 4 cups of blended oats, and that ends up being about 440 grams. If you want to use a flour or flour substitute, just look at the substitution rate online versus oats. Then I'll add those blended oats with some cocoa powder, sugar, salt, baking soda, and baking powder to a large bowl, and I'll mix that until it's really nicely combined and set it aside. Then next I'm going to be mashing my bananas in a separate bowl. I'm also going to be adding all the sugars that came out from when they were in the oven, so make sure all the liquid gets in there and mash it really, really good. Then I'll add 8 eggs. The eggs add a ton of protein to this dish and really make this a really filling breakfast. Then I'll also add 1 cup of yogurt or applesauce, or you can just do oil if that's what you have on hand, and a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and get that all mixed up and completely combined. It'll be a little lumpy, and that's totally okay. Then add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients, mix that till fully combined, and then I'm going to take a muffin tin and just either line that with the little paper cups, or you can just grease it with some butter or oil, whatever you have on hand is fine, just to make sure that it's not sticking after it's baked. And then I'm going to fill this about 3/4 to almost completely full. They don't rise a ton, and they only take 20 to 25 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. So it's very, very fast. I did top them with some chocolate chips just for fun, but that's optional and totally up to you. And again, after they're fully cooled, you can either eat them right there or you can freeze them and then just put them in the microwave to heat them up later straight from the freezer. This next breakfast idea is a cottage cheese scrambled egg, and it goes really great with one of the muffins and any leftover meat that you have on hand. So first, to a bowl, I'm just going to crack 8 eggs and then add 1 cup of cottage cheese and blend everything up. Just whisk it all together until it's combined. It's okay if there are some lumps and things like that. Once it cooks through, it's not going to make a difference. So that's totally fine. It's not going to look amazing right from the bowl, but once you cook it and taste it, oh my goodness, it's going to be so good. So we're just going to make these just like regular scrambled eggs. Just use a little bit of butter or oil or just a little bit of water to help you cook, and then add your eggs over medium heat here and just push them around until they start to cook through, and turn them until they're all the way cooked through to your liking. And then you can just add a little salt and pepper if you like. Just remember that cottage cheese is a little bit salty, so taste it first before adding any seasonings, and then serve it up and enjoy. The next bit of prep for the week is just making the chicken in the Instant Pot. And other than this, the only thing I recommend is maybe dicing your onions and shredding your carrots in advance, just to help you put everything together. But with this Instant Pot chicken, super easy. We're just going to pat that chicken dry and then season all over with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and paprika on both sides. Then add those to the Instant Pot. I'm just going to add a cup of water to make sure I don't get a burn notice or anything, and everything cooks really nicely. Then I'm just going to close it up and cook it on high pressure for 12 minutes, and then let it natural release for 10 minutes. Then I'll release the steam, and once the pin has dropped, I'm going to open that up and remove the chicken. Then I'm just going to shred it on up and, put it in a container to refrigerate it overnight up to 5 days, or I can use some of it for dinner that evening. I actually made this chicken while I was making the muffins, just so it was all done and ready to go for the rest of the week. And then I always save the skin and bones to make chicken stock or broth later in the week for other recipes. This first dinner idea is very easy and super delicious. It's easy chicken and cabbage. So the first thing I'm going to do is slice my cabbage. And if you've never done it before, it looks intimidating, but it's actually pretty easy. So first I'm just going to slice it in half, and then you'll see that there is a core at the bottom. So I'm just going to slice that core out in sort of a triangle shape just to get that out of the way. And once that's out, we're just going to toss that because we're not going to use it. And then we'll just lay the cabbage down on the flat side and slice it in about 1/4 inch thick slices, and that's essentially shredding the cabbage. Super easy. After that, I like to throw it in my salad spinner, give it a good wash and spin so that way it's nice and clean and dry before I make my next recipe. I'm saving half of this cabbage for another recipe later, so we're just using half of the head of cabbage, and you can see it's quite a bit of cabbage. It will cook down, so don't worry. So let's get started on this recipe. In a large pan, I'm going to melt some butter over medium heat, and again, you can use oil or water, whatever you have to help cook. Then I'm going to add my onions and saute for about 2 to 3 minutes until it's soft and translucent. Then I'm going to add all of that cabbage, and I'm just going to cook that for 10 minutes. Just let it sit for a couple minutes to let it kind of wilt on the bottom, and then scoop the hot portions up on top of the rest, and you'll see it start to wilt. And continue to stir and cook until it's really nice and wilted. And we're seasoning all the way through because it is a lot of cabbage, so we want to make sure it has really nice flavor. So just make sure as you're turning, you're seasoning again with salt, pepper, and paprika. Then we're just going to add in our 2 cups of cooked chicken and some minced garlic cloves. Now, if you don't have the garlic cloves on hand for whatever reason, you could use some garlic powder, so don't worry. And just season it again with some more salt, pepper, and paprika to taste until everything is nice and heated through. And then just serve that up and enjoy. It's not a very beautiful dish, but I promise it's really delicious. You can add some hot sauce or anything on top to add some color and enjoy this one. This next dinner dinner idea is one of my all-time favorites. It's called egg roll in a bowl, and it really does come together super fast. First, we'll shred our carrots if we haven't done it already during our prep time, and then I'm going to heat some oil in a large pan. If you have butter or water, you can use that instead, and then I'll add the ground turkey to the pan and break that up as it browns and cooks through. And if you want to make this later on, you could use ground beef, ground pork, or ground chicken, so that's up to you. Just keep that in mind for next time. Then I'll add some minced garlic and cook that until it's fragrant, about 30 seconds more or so. And then I'm going to add the cabbage. And again, it's a lot of cabbage, so make sure that you have a large pan and just let it sit for a couple of minutes before you stir it, just to allow the bottom to wilt and make it easier to stir. And as you carefully stir, it will really start to wilt quite a bit. So don't worry, it doesn't take long. After that cabbage has wilted, just to give us enough space on the top, we're going to add the shredded carrots and give that a stir. And we're going to continue to cook and saute and stir until the veggies are tender to your desired liking here. So it really just depends. If you like your veggies really nice and soft, you can continue to cook. Or if you like them with a little bit of a bite, then don't cook them too long, just until they're nice and wilted. Then we'll add the soy sauce, some ginger and pepper, and stir until everything is really heated through. And just make a well in the center, because this is where we're going to crack our eggs. I'm just using 2 eggs this time, but you could use up to 4 eggs, and that would really stretch this meal too if you're serving more people. Just scramble it in the middle there. Once those are cooked through, you're just going to stir everything together, and that's it for this dish. That's all we have to do to cook. It really comes together in about 20 minutes or so. Serve that with some hot sauce or some sesame seeds, green onions. It's so delicious. Next, we're going to be making a very easy beef lo mein using some flank steak. So first, I'm just going to start by making my sauce in a small jar. You can use a bowl, whatever you like. I'm just going to mix together some brown sugar, hoisin, sesame oil, ground ginger, soy sauce, and a little bit of pepper. Give that a shake or a stir until it's nice and combined, and then I'll set that aside. Also, I'll be bringing a pot of water to a boil and starting my spaghetti, because this dish does come together pretty quickly, so I'd like everything to get started before I start sauteing everything. Then I'll add some oil to a large pan and add my flank steak. Now, I did overcrowd, so if you want to have a nice brown on your flank steak, don't overcrowd it. You can do it in portions, so that way your meat has space to not steam. So mine ended up being a little bit more steamed. It was still delicious, but again, if you want it to be browned, just do it in portions instead. Once that was browned a little bit, I did add my onions and start to saute those until they were nice and soft and tender. There was a lot of fat, so I decided to just remove some of it because we don't like a lot of fat in our dishes, but that's optional. I just used a paper towel to get rid of some of the fat. Then I added the carrots and some garlic and sauteed that until it was a little bit soft and fragrant, just a couple of minutes or so. Then I added my cooked spaghetti and the sauce that we prepared earlier, gave it a good stir, heated it through, and that's it. And then I just served it with some hot sauce. It was absolutely delicious. And again, if you want a nice brown sear on your flank steak and you want that fat to sort of render, then just make sure you don't overcrowd like I did. This next dish is a really easy, lazy macaroni and cheese, and it turned out so good. I'm actually going to be making this one for Thanksgiving, and that's how easy it is too. Comes together in about 20 minutes in a small blender. I'm going to be adding my milk, cottage cheese, some cheddar cheese, ground mustard, garlic powder, and pepper. I'm going to give that a blend. Now, in order to get it really smooth, I used my smaller blender, and I did this in batches so it would get nice and smooth. But if you have a really great blender, of course, you could just put it all in one big blender and get it really nice and smooth. And it's not a bad thing if it's not super smooth, because the cottage cheese you really can't notice once it's cooked. But again, it's up to you. I just wanted a really nice and smooth sauce, and that's why I did it in batches like this. And in the meantime, I also had some water boiling and started to cook my macaroni noodles. And then I added the sauce to a medium pan and brought that to a very low simmer. After it was hot, I added a little bit of the pasta water and gave that a good stir, turned off the heat, and added the rest of that shredded cheddar cheese, stirred it up until it was nice and melty. And that pasta water is going to make sure that this is a nice creamy sauce too, and helps really make everything stick together. Once the cheese was melted, I added my cooked noodles and gave it a stir, and you can serve it right away. It's going to be really saucy if you serve it immediately, but if you let it stand for about 5 minutes, it does thicken up quite a bit and becomes a more rich sauce. You can always add a little bit more pasta water too if you want to thin it out a little bit. I personally enjoyed it both ways, when it was a really saucy sauce and when it thickened up a bit, so either way is great. This next dinner idea was my first time cooking with tofu. This is is a tofu noodle stir fry. So I didn't get the tofu just right. It didn't get as crispy as I wanted. So if you have any tips for cooking with tofu, leave them in the comments so myself and everybody can read them. But I did slice it a little bit thin and then chopped it into cubes and tried to get as much moisture as I could by using some towels and a big cast iron skillet, just a heavy skillet on top to really press the moisture out. And I did get some moisture, but I think I could have left it a little bit longer. I left it for about 10 minutes or so while I prepped everything else and cut all the veggies. Now, in the meantime, I did mix together a sauce in a jar. I added 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, a tablespoon of fish sauce, a tablespoon of honey, 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce, and 4 cloves of minced garlic, and 1/2 cup of water. Now, if you don't have all of that jazz, you can just use that hoisin sauce that we picked up, and that's perfectly fine. It'll do great for the sauce for this. So just whatever works for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and season and toss my tofu with just some soy sauce, sesame oil, and cornstarch. And the cornstarch is supposed to help get it nice and crispy. So I may not have added enough cornstarch, and I just wanted to make sure it was nicely coated. But I think next time maybe I'll add a little bit more. I added about a tablespoon. So again, if you have any tips or tricks on getting this really crispy, let me know down below. Now I did put it in the air fryer so I could saute everything else in the meantime while this got it nice and crispy. It was about 360 degrees for about 15 minutes, and I tossed it in between here and there. I also started my spaghetti in a large pot of boiling water before I started to saute all my veggies here. Then I heated up some oil. You can add butter or water again in a large pan, and added my onions and just sauteed those until they were soft and translucent, about 3 or 4 minutes. Then I added the mushrooms and sauteed those for 5 minutes or until they were nice and soft. Then added my shredded carrots and sauteed those for 2 or 3 minutes or so. Then I just added my cooked spaghetti, the crispy tofu, and the soy sauce mixture that I made prior, and just tossed it all together and cooked it for another minute or two until everything was heated through, and that was it. I just served it with some green onions and some sriracha on top, and it turned out really nicely, except the tofu just needed to be a little bit crispier. And I think next time I might try a marinade and just make that tofu in advance, maybe the night before, and let it sit in some sauce, and I think that would be amazing. This next dinner idea is another one of my favorite dinners. It's turkey lettuce wraps, and it's very similar to what you get in a restaurant. I think you're going to be really excited when you try this one. In a large pan, I'm going to heat some oil over medium heat, add my onions, saute those until they're soft, just a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes or so. Then I'll add my diced mushrooms and saute those until they're pretty soft. That'll take about 3 or 4 minutes. Then I'll add my entire pound of ground turkey and saute that while I'm breaking it apart and getting it nice and cooked through and browned. And after that's nice and cooked through, that's when I'm just going to add my sauce. I'm going to add some hoisin, soy sauce, rice vinegar, and sesame oil, and give that a good stir. And again, if you don't have all these extra sauces, that's totally fine. Make substitutions anywhere that you have anything on hand, and that will work out. The hoisin, though, really makes this dish. After that's heated through, I'm going to add my carrots, onions, and garlic, and give that a nice saute for about 2 to 3 minutes until everything's a little bit soft. And then I'm just going to serve about 2 to 3 tablespoons on each lettuce wrap. And that's it. So easy and so delicious. This last dinner idea is an inspiration I got from another recipe I found online. It's a sausage gnocchi, and it comes together really quickly. So in a large pan, I'm going to brown my Italian sausage. This is the sausage that I found. If you find the links, just take the casings off first and then break it all apart and brown it. And as it browns, then you're going to strain off the fat as well. I just use a paper towel to usually get a little bit of that fat off, but you can of course strain it separately. Then I added the garlic and sauteed that until it was fragrant, about 30 seconds or so. Then I added the broth, milk, lime or lemon juice, and the gnocchi and gave it a stir. Then I just covered it, reduced the heat, and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Just check on the packaging how long the gnocchi takes, and that's about as long as you want to simmer for. Now, I will say that this dish did turn out a little bit heavy, so next time I think I'm going to substitute something like a chicken sausage instead, and that will lighten it up a little bit because I just don't like super heavy dishes usually, but it was super delicious and just so filling. Now, after you have cooked it for a couple of minutes and it's cooked the gnocchi all the way through, you're going to stir it and add your spinach, cover it, and about 2 minutes or so, you're going to uncover it and give it a stir and just make sure that spinach is nice and wilted. And then you're just going to serve it with some Parmesan cheese if you have it on hand. And that's it. It's super fast, super easy, and so delicious. Again, I would just probably try something lighter next time, like a chicken sausage, or maybe try to strain more of the fat out just so it's not as heavy. I hope you enjoyed those recipes and at least got a little inspiration for meals to make for your family. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a little thumbs up and subscribe to see more. I'll see y'all next time.